you stay for a while. I would like to share his experiences from the Philippines. He just came back from the Philippines. And he's no other than, after the Mass, we will ask him to go to speak to you, our Minister of Citizenship, Immigration, and Multiculturalism, Minister Kenney. Came here this evening for our celebration. We will announce this.
Please remember the poor of your parish. Please do not forget to drop your donations to the St. Vincent de Paul Society Box. September 30, Thursday, is the last day to register your child for the sacrament of first reconciliation, first communion, and confirmation. Parents of children who are not enrolled or related
Simple fellowship, and then after the simple fellowship, we will go to the chapel to meet the press, those who are going to have questions, and also go there. So that is the plan. Now, what else to do? I'd like to welcome Honorable Minister of Multiculturalism, Immigration, and Citizenship, Minister Kenney. Just came from the Philippines, so maybe he knows some Tagalog.
Halohalo sa Lorenzo. Thank you very much, Father Epcot, for your kind introduction and opportunity to speak to the congregation here at Our Lady of the Assumption. I think, however, that this parish should be called St. Francis of Assisi because I see a squirrel here as attending the Mass with me. I don't know if you always welcome animals, but that's beautiful. Do you see the squirrel going around? It's the blessing of the animals, yes? Thank you very much, Father and dear friends. It is a real honor for me to be with you here to join with you at the celebration of the Mass on the feast day of San Lorenzo, one of the great Philippine saints, one of the great martyrs of the Church. I had an opportunity, this is my second opportunity to attend Mass in Tagalog in 1 week. Because last week I was in the National Cathedral in Manila. So pretty soon we got all the responses in Tagalog. But it was a great visit in the Philippines where I was representing all of you and all Canadians in congratulating the new leader of Philippines, a man who we believe is bringing new hope and a fresh beginning to your country of origin, the Philippines. Noy President Aquino, and I wish them great congratulations. He struck me as a man of sincerity, intelligence, ability. You know, no one who is in any vocation is perfect. He's going to have challenges. And we know that the Philippines faces many deep and significant social and economic challenges. But he seems, most importantly to me, to be someone who is authentic, someone who has the right orientation, someone who functions, who's working for good faith, and not out to enrich himself, but to enrich the people of his country. So everyone like to Philippines, we hope forward towards greater stability, security, and prosperity. But you are here as Canadians, and I know you all have a heart and a passion for your families, loved ones, and friends back in the Philippines. You, however, have made the courageous choice to make Canada your new home. see you now. You see Filipinos who came as caregivers, giving of themselves literally, sharing the gift. You see Filipinos coming increasingly to Canada working as nurses and in the healthcare profession. And wherever it is, we see in Canadians of Filipino origin people of passion, people with a deep respect and love for life. In French they call it joie de vivre. I just heard the announcement that of the participation in the life chain, for example. I participate in the life chain in my home city of Calgary. I want to encourage you to do the same here, because you can be, as John Paul II called us to be, a sign of contradiction against the culture of death. You can be people who stand up for the dignity of the human person and for a love for life. And that is a unique and special gift that everyone who comes into contact with people from the Philippines feel that passion and that love for life. So I say thank you for the contribution that you each have made as families, as individuals, and collectively as a community. And let me also say, to give you good, interesting news that I learned on my visit to Manila. Prior to go, Canada was receiving about 16,000 immigrants from the Philippines as permanent residents. Last year, over the past 5 years, we've seen that double. And last year, we received nearly 30,000 immigrants from the Philippines. And this year, 2010, Philippines for the first time ever will be the #1 source of newcomers to Canada. It's the fastest growth of And so, Father, we're going to have to apply for an extension. We're going to have to go to the Archbishop and get an extension of the size of the church here. Because there are more parishioners who are arriving every day. And we are trying to help them. We as Canadians are trying to help them get settled successfully. Because we know the process of settlement and integration can sometimes be a challenge for people. You know, the challenge of finding a job and getting the kids settled in Canada, waiting for families to be united. We know the challenge, the problem of how do you get a Canadian job without Canadian experience problem, and all of those other challenges. But we are trying to do as much as we can to help. To give you just a quick example, we've created 2 programs in the Philippines, so now all of the permanent resident immigrants have special orientation sessions from the Canadian government after they've been selected and before they come here. One of them that I visited, Canadian orientation abroad for the skilled workers and provincial nominees, and another one is, that one's also for the caregivers, and then we have the Canadian Immigration Integration Project. And I met with some of the caregivers coming. They're being briefed on what their rights are in Canada. They're being told what the mandatory contract requirements are. And I met with the skilled workers who are coming, young professionals filled with energy, promise, and a great deal of their ability to contribute. And so and here on the Canadian side, we've tripled the support for services to help people get started. But let me just close, Father, because I respect the attendance time, and I'll have a chance to meet with some of you individually down below. Let me say a special word of consideration for some of the most vulnerable newcomers to Canada, and those are the caregivers. Now, you know as well as I do that we have Filipino caregivers all around the world taking good care of people's families. And at the same time taking care of their own families back home through their remittances. And we know their life can sometimes be very difficult, separated from their families. And we know that in some countries, in the Middle East, in Asia, that sometimes they are subject to terrible treatment and abuse and exploitation and injustice. And we want to do everything we can. We have in fact taken steps to do everything we can legally in Canada to ensure that those who come here are protected and do not face exploitation or injustice, but are able to live in dignity. I want to thank the caregivers and their
husband, and sa Oliver. So ladies and gentlemen, as the minister asked that we pray for the good of our most vulnerable brothers and sisters, we are presenting to you the prayer by Andrea Bocelli, which will be performed by the caregivers, members of the Light of Jesus community from Mississauga, Milton, and Oakville. So please bear with us for a very short while. We will have to turn off the lights, and we would like to ask the camera people not to take pictures. No, don't flash, because this is going to use black light. So are we ready now? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Angels, please come in. Come in. And they are here in Canada, some of them only a couple of months, but they spend time to practice so that they can bring to prayer the desires of their heart. Thank you so much, Lights of Jesus, caregivers. Our dear friends, please, we are given a few minutes to meet and greet our beloved Minister Jason Kenney. Okay, can we call the Lights of Jesus? We are here, the organizations of the different caregivers areas, Judith and her company in Philport, Durham region. Please give them a big, big hands. The Jesus of Lights, can you please have them? Let's give them a big, big hands. We are the Association of Caregivers Door Hill. We have the Gateway Caregivers Group. Can you please, all of you, come here with Minister Kenney and Father Ben? Please, all the caregivers, because soon Minister Kenney will have to be interviewed by our media personalities. The press conference will take on room number 4. So please, all caregivers. Yes. Yes. Okay. The media, please go to room number 4. Yeah, there. Okay, take the pictures. And we have our Miss Caregiver Alma Takuboy, Magdalene, please take a picture. Because they're going to the conference room very soon. Please. We only have 3 minutes left. Okay. One group, big pictures for the caregivers. The media, please head to room number 4. Media, please proceed to room number 4.
Pumunta kayo doon sa mga simbahan. Nagpunta lang sa kayo.
Anyone who would have some questions to Minister, please proceed number 4. Room number 4, please. The media. Chapel number 4. In the chapel.
For joining us. The Honorable Jason Kenney will be happy to take a few questions.
Well, I just mentioned upstairs a little bit about my visit to Philippines. Last week, I was very honored to be there. Met with, first of all, the Secretary of Labor in Beijing, because she was coming to Beijing as I was leaving to go to Manila. So we spent a good hour together talking about our improved protection for temporary foreign workers, for caregivers, and ways that we could work together to combat exploitation by unscrupulous immigration agents and recruiters in the Philippines. And it was a very productive meeting. And then I got into Manila, where I had a full day of very intensive meetings with Citizenship and Immigration Canada officials. We have our, I think our second largest office in the world now is in Manila. And I explained why. To this year, the Philippines has emerged as the #1 source for permanent residents. We'll be processing over 33,000 permanent resident visas from Philippines this year.
In addition, of course, we continue to have many visitors, including temporary workers, including the caregivers, many of whom go on to permanent residency. So it's a very important program. Our mission there has made a lot of improvements in the service that we provide, we have a bit of a challenge there, which is that there's so many people now seeking to come to Canada. It's hard to manage all of the pressure from all the different programs, but our officials are doing their very best to keep up on top of family reunification and all the other streams of immigration. I had a very encouraging and very interesting, wide-ranging, hour-long discussion with President Aquino. It's early in his administration, and I indicated to him Canada's a strong hope that his administration will succeed in its ambition to create greater economic prosperity and social security throughout the country. And I said that Canada is keen to support him in whatever way we can. I discussed the ways that we've provided assistance to Philippines, for example, in the typhoon last year. And I had also a very good meeting. The Minister of Foreign Affairs was at that meeting. I was hoping to meet the Secretary of Justice, Baldos. Is her name? Is it? No. Rose de Lima. De Lima. Secretary Baldos is the Secretary of Labor. So Mrs. de Lima unfortunately had to cancel our meeting at the last minute because there was a crisis, and also it was the day they were releasing the report on the Manila bus incident. And as you know, we also expressed concern about that because 3 Canadian citizens were tragically killed on that bus. Finally, I had to give a speech to the Canada-Philippines Chamber of Commerce in Manila. There was a great opportunity to tell them the good news about the expansion of immigration, about our efforts to combat the exploitation by unscrupulous immigration agents, and also the growing commercial ties between the countries. And did a number of other things on the margins. I did get a chance briefly to visit the National Cathedral, as I mentioned, for Mass, and unfortunately I didn't get out. I was hoping, I could spend longer. I said, I'd like to go for at least 3 or 4 days and go to Cebu or something.
Next time.
Next time around. Or go down to the south, but it just wasn't possible because I had to come back for Parliament. So I do hope to go back, and I'm going to encourage some of my colleagues in the Cabinet to go to Philippines to reinforce this strong and growing relationship. So that's my little report. And of course, Joe, my dear friend Joe Oliver, has been a strong proponent, and quite frankly, our protections, our changes to the caregiver program never would have happened without him I'll even say it, politely harassing me every week or so. Jason, how's that coming? And Joe was in your corner on that, and I want to thank him for being kind of my little conscience on that issue for caregivers, Joe. But there you are, folks. So I had a really great visit, and I think it's only going to yield. So one of my focuses was, we need to cooperate in combating the fraud facilitated by these unscrupulous agents. We've done our part by saying that the caregivers will not pay the fees for the recruiters, and I think they've strengthened the regulations on the Filipino side. Since President Aquino took office, they've deregistered a bunch of unscrupulous recruitment agencies. So I think that we're going to see less incidents of exploitation. We'll never eliminate it. Father knows why. It's 2 words, original sin, but we can reduce it. We can reduce it, and we're making progress on that.
Honorable Minister Kenney, I was just wondering about the recognition of foreign, like the accrediting foreign professionals, because some of those who apply under the nanny program were actually teachers, but the reason they couldn't, the waiting list for the independent professionals is much longer than the nanny program. So is there any way that their foreign education will be accredited faster in Canada so that they can practice what they actually were educated?
Good question. And the same question was asked of me by caregivers who I met with, that they were participating in the Canadian Orientation Abroad session that we are providing, so they are better prepared coming here. 2 points. Firstly, we've actually substantially reduced the waiting times for the skilled worker program. And so now, when our government came to office in 2006, it was taking 6 or 7 years to process an application for the skilled worker program. It now takes about 8 months. So this is much faster. In fact, if you include all the different processing times and the 2 years for a caregiver to apply for permanent residency, it would be faster for a qualified skilled worker from Philippines to apply for that program, much faster to get permanent residency than applying for the caregiver program. So I would encourage people to go that route if they're qualified for that program. Secondly, our government has been working very hard on the issue of speeding up credential recognition for foreign trained professionals. The problem is that ultimately that licensing of foreign trained professionals is the responsibility of the provincial governments. The federal government recognizes people's education for purposes of the point system, for purposes of choosing them as immigrants. Then the 40-some licensing bodies, the Engineering Association, the Teachers College, the Physicians College, the Nurses College, they, in each of the 10 provinces, are responsible for assessing people's credentials and giving them the tests and doing the licensing. What our federal government has done is the Prime Minister Harper brought together all 10 provincial premiers, and he said, for the first time ever, he said, look, we need to find a national solution to this problem. It is unjust and a huge waste of human talent and potential to have tens of thousands of highly trained foreign professionals driving taxis and working in convenience stores and being perpetually underemployed. And we need a streamlined process. And so our government put $50 million into developing with the provinces, a kind of accelerated federal benchmarks for credential recognition. And so now the provinces have agreed to that. We started with nine professions to begin with, and we will expand it each year to include more and more of the 40 licensed professions. The objective of which is to give applicants for licensing an answer within a year. Sorry, it's a technical answer, but it's a very complicated and technical problem. Bottom line is, no foreign trained professional who comes to Canada is going to have a guarantee ever that their credentials will be recognized. They need to know that when they apply to come to Canada. But they deserve a fair shot and an answer in a period of time. And that's what we've tried to do through this pan-Canadian framework for the recognition of foreign credentials. It's also what we've done through the Foreign Credential Recognition Office in my ministry. That, for example, I met with skilled workers in Manila who've been selected, who are in licensed professions, who will be coming to Canada in a few weeks or months. And our program over there gets them to apply for credential licensing before they arrive in Canada. It hooks them up with the relevant provincial licensing body so they can get the process started before they arrive in Canada, so there's no lost time. Bottom line, can I guarantee that a teacher who's coming through the Living Caregiver program is going to be recognized? No, because that's up to the Provincial College of Teachers, and I can't tell them what to do. But we are trying to get all 10 colleges of teachers, all 10 colleges of nurses, all 10 colleges of physicians to cut the red tape and speed up the process. So that's the best answer I can give.
Just in addition to that, is it possible that Canadian schools will branch overseas so that it would be easier to just go through the Canadian school in the Philippines?
And that makes a whole lot more sense, doesn't it?
And get the right education?
Yes, it is possible, and the good news is that it's happening. I think one of the largest stream increases in Filipino immigration to Canada is for nurses, coming in through the provincial nominee programs, or coming in as highly skilled temporary foreign workers, which will allow them to apply for permanent residency through the new Canadian Experience class that our government introduced. And some Canadian provinces, Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Alberta, have established agreements with, have done an assessment of the nursing training available in the Philippines and are offering, through their own colleges, upgraded training to the Canadian standard. So the short answer is yes. We're starting to see this kind of training in Philippines according to the Canadian curriculum so they can be recognized to practice when they arrive in Canada. We're doing that so far with nurses, but you're right, there are many other professions such as teachers where it would be good to see that happen as well. Sorry, that stuff is very complicated. I always dread that question because there's no simple soundbite to answer it. I apologize.
Yeah,
Yeah, we just wanted to have an update of this very controversial case, which is the Ruby Dollar case. Like, we're just wondering, what is going on with the investigation? Is it still ongoing, or did they put a dead stop on it?
Well, the investigations and and the enforcement of the Immigration Act is the responsibility of the Canada Border Services Agency. It's a law enforcement agency, it's like a police agency. And they're responsible. When they hear allegations that the law has been broken, if they hear allegations that an employer seized someone's passport or abused their rights or committed fraud under the Immigration Act, they are responsible for conducting an investigation, looking into it, and if there are sufficient grounds laying charges. Similarly, if there have been violations of the Ontario Labour Code, it's up to the Ontario Labour, what's the agency here called? The Ontario Labour Relations Board or something? I don't know. It's up to the relevant provincial authorities to do that investigation. So the reason I tell you that is because we make sure the politicians don't get involved in law enforcement. We don't want to mix up the policymakers, politicians, with the law enforcement agencies. So the bottom line is, I don't know the answer to your question. I don't know whether there's an investigation or what the status of it is, because that would be up to the CBSA and or other police and law enforcement agencies. I'm sorry I can't give you a more direct answer on that. It's really, I encourage you, if you on any particular case are aware of people's rights being violated or laws being broken, go to the relevant law enforcement agency. When we heard about those allegations, I raised the matter with my deputy minister to get his advice on how to deal with this, and he said that he basically said, leave it with us as officials, so you don't, as the minister, have to get involved, and we'll raise the matter with the Canada Border Services Agency, and if they see sufficient grounds, may or may not choose to launch an investigation, and that's the last I know of it. So, yes.
Well, Minister, we really want to thank you so much for all the effort that you are doing for the Filipino community. We know that both you, the federal and the provincial, are trying to find answers to arrest or to minimize problems, especially in the Living Caregiver program. But we are looking forward to the fruition or to see the efficiency of these laws that has already been put in place. The Living Caregiver participants are very much anxious to really see the benefit, to enjoy the benefit of these changes that you just made. But we really have problem on the labor employment issues because it continues to be, and we know that that is on the provincial level, and we, community leaders and the caregivers, have the great moral responsibility to continue speaking up and continue laying down the issues that are really affecting our lives. One thing that's coming on my mind, if there is any possibility, if it's gonna work, that those who are applying, because it's a Canadian embassy that is processing, Filipinos come from different countries, from Philippines, Singapore,
yes.
And would it be possible to have information sheets when they apply for living caregiver? Because by the time they come in here, it's too late. They are already a victim of exploitation and this thing because of the lack of information. But if they submit the application, then the Canadian embassy will give them information as to...
That was part of the announcement that we made in December, that we are providing better information on the rights of caregivers, and my understanding is that we are giving them that information. I've actually seen the information in Manila, and we're giving them the orientation session. You may have seen I was speaking to them about protecting their rights, and that's part of the orientation that we give them, what their rights are. We give them written information, we give them contact information for NGOs, for non-government organizations, for caregiver advocacy organizations, for settlement groups, you know, and we let them know who to call if their rights are being not violated, and so we are providing that information. But I'm going to have to double check to make sure that our missions outside of Manila are doing as I told them to. Let me be very clear. That was part of my announcement, part of my direction to the ministry. And I'm going to go, thanks for raising that, if you could make a note for me to check with the ministry. Because I know many of the caregivers are coming from
Israel,
the Middle East, from the Gulf states, from Southeast Asia, from Hong Kong, and we need to make sure that they're getting the information before they get here as well. It's a little more difficult because, you know, the Philippine government does have its own process to teach people their rights and give them, before they authorize their departure as contract workers, I guess they call it. So they have their own process. So it's a little easier to intervene with people coming directly from Philippines. But we have to ensure that those coming from these other jurisdictions, especially, and I'll tell you why it's especially important, because we all know that there is far more serious abuse of caregivers in the Middle East and in Asia than there is in Canada. And my fear is a lady coming who's worked in one of these countries where she's been abused, where she's had no rights, arrives in Canada, and things are infinitely better than they were in her last job, but they're still not up to the Canadian legal standard. And so if the employer here makes her work 7 days a week, she may not complain because she thinks, well, this is still a lot better than what I had back in Abu Dhabi. And so I'm very aware of this problem, and that's why you're right, we need to improve that education.
Well, in behalf of those families that you have through your ministerial intervention, Honorable Minister Kenney, they're saying thank you so much because there are cases that are being considered through your office.
Thank you.
Good evening, Honorable Minister Kenney.
No.
I'm Magdalene Gordo, and I would like to personally apologize you for all the accuse you of political conspiracy during the decades. This is my first time to meet you, and it is not true that you push us or you force us to speak up, which is according to the I would like to ask you personally because I am confused and I do not know where to start from here. Although the statement which the Parliament, the result of the Parliament where they investigate, they
Yes.
said that we have to submit the result of the investigation. And now we don't know where to start. Do you have any advice?
Okay.
Who should I call? Who is the authority to investigate this case? Because I would like to prove to people, to the community, that we did not lie, and
Yes.
it is true. And I also don't like Honorable Mr. Kenney that it was written on the media that she was clear, and she's not clear.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I can understand perhaps your confusion because this was a subject of hearings and a report by House of Commons Standing Committee, and I can understand confusion because it looks to many people like that's an investigation, when in point of fact, the House of Commons Committee has no normal legal authority to lay charges or enforce the law. All it can do is bring forward certain facts into the public square, and then people have to make their own judgment on those facts. There were two reports that came from that committee. There was the majority report of the committee, and then there was the report of one political party, which you're referring to. So yes, it won't surprise anyone to hear that sometimes there is a manipulation of the facts to suit people's political agenda in any issue. But that is, if you're speaking to me as someone who feels that your rights have been violated and that the law has been broken, all that I can do as a minister of the government is refer you to take that information to the relevant police or law enforcement agencies and provide them with the relevant evidence and ask them to pursue an investigation. It would be inappropriate for me as a minister to go further than that, and I'm in a difficult position because I obviously, when I hear allegations that people have been mistreated, I feel very badly for them. I feel a sense of compassion. I obviously have a natural sense of justice. I have a legal responsibility as a minister, though, not to get involved in law enforcement and investigations. I cannot pick up the phone and direct the law enforcement agency, the CBSA, or police service to do an investigation into something that would be inappropriate for me legally. So I have to encourage, if you have information or evidence about a particular set of facts that may have violated the law, go to the relevant police services, go to the CBSA, perhaps find a lawyer. If you can't afford a lawyer, there are pro bono lawyers, there are people that will provide free legal advice. And I'm sure Joe can give you a list. He knows a lot of lawyers, and they can then advise you about how to get the best way to approach and provide evidence to a relevant law enforcement agency. I'm sorry for sounding very legalistic, but you'll understand I am very constrained by the law as to what I can say on something of this nature.
Are there any other questions? Thank you very much, Minister.
Okay, and thank you all. And am I going to be able to stay for a little bit yet?
Yes, we can take some more pictures in a minute.
Okay, because I left my dinner out there.
I don't need it, I know, but still.
Hi, can I have a picture with you? It says, I love Canada.
I love the shirt.
What's your name?
I'm actually web media, video recording. I'll email you the link.
Okay.
Thank you so much for that.
I'm sorry, credential recognition, there's no reason to do that. I wish there was. Yes, okay. Sheer, I think you should get a camera like that. It's not on there. That's the meanest looking camera I've ever seen. You're very generous about it.